Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Entitled mother called the police on me and my supervisor because she didn't have the right to refuse care for her adult son. I was the most entitled parent that you have ever seen in your life? I'll start. We ran into a teenager that had been in a bad motor vehicle accident. Patient blood pressure was bad and, on top of that, he was having trouble breathing due to an anxiety attack. My paramedic was starting an IV on him to give him some kind of medication that was supposed to help the blood pressure, while I was starting a 4-lead and a 12-lead EKG. It's those stickers we put on your body. They allow us to take pretty much a picture of your heart. Enter the entitled mother.
Excuse me, did I say that you could treat my child?
The entitled mother asked in that annoying entitled voice. Which she would be right, for all minors unless a child is literally on this doorstep and there is no parent or guardian to be found, you have to get consent from the parent or guardian to treat the child. However, that only applies for kids newborn to 17 years old. Ma'am, your child is 18. He already signed the consent form for treatment and transport. I'm gonna have to politely ask you to step out of my ambulance. I asked. And I understand the parent being worried about her of-age kid when they are in medical emergency. Most of the time, if I feel that having a family member in the truck with us will be beneficial to the patient's mental health, I will have them ride with us in a passenger seat up front to the hospital. But the second the family member steps into my ambulance and starts causing stress for my patient, that's when I draw the line, because we have to worry about the patient, not the patient's family. And the entitled mother grunts and then slams the ambulance door shut. I thought that was the end of it, so we continued to care for the patient. My paramedic pushed his drug and the patient's blood pressure was finally starting to lower. Alright, I feel comfortable transporting. Now let's get him to the hospital name I won't say because of HEPA. As I step out of the ambulance and close the door, I see the entitled mother walking up to the ambulance, this time with a state trooper. Sir, she says that y'all are treating her child without consent. Is this true? The state trooper asked me. I told the state trooper that the guy was 18 years old and already signed consent for treatment and transport. State trooper talked to my paramedic, looked at this guy's ID and signed form and then started getting out of the ambulance.
So, are they letting my kid go?
I heard her ask. The look on her face in the side view mirror as I put the truck in gear and drove off, leaving her there, was just priceless. At the end of the day, as far as I know, the hospital got the patient's vitals stable and he got discharged the next morning. This was not the end of it though. This entitled mother actually dug deep enough and got my supervisor's phone number the next day. This man had to go back through the call logs and check that the consent form was signed and the hospital paperwork I scanned into that PCR that showed his first day of him being 18 years old. I passed by my supervisor when he was doing this and the only words out of his mouth were, Karens. Next story. Not the owner, not an employee. To kinda give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I work for the state dealing with public benefits and assistance supplemental nutrition assistance program, Medicaid and the like. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall. I used to be a powerlifter and weigh 340 pounds. So yeah, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual unless you are working at the central office or a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time. On the day in question in 2018, I was wearing the one and the only suit I own, being the size that on the suit is tailored. Now this was a few years ago, so some things will be paraphrased as my memory is faulty. Few too many blows to the head in my use. I'm Dungeon Master for a Dungeons & Dragons game every Thursday at a friend of mine's house. I was in my late 30s and as I was leaving work, my friend called me and asked if I could pick him up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So I hit a local game store on my way to his place. While I was there, I noticed a frustrated young woman trying to convey something to the owner. She was using American Sign Language, the only other language I understand other than English. I tapped her on the shoulder and signed to her to see if I could help her out. She explained that she was looking into getting into Dungeons and Dragons with some of her deaf friends from school. So I asked her some questions and found that they have never played. But due to the success of Critical Role, they want to try and she's going to Dungeon Master. I helped her get everything she would need for new players, and she was just so happy that someone could help her out using American Sign Language, and that she thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I explained to her that she had been working with the owner when I got there, and that I was just an avid Dungeons and Dragons fan and I Dungeon Master myself, and that I was just stopping in for some dice. She looked at me confused and signed, "So you don't work here?" "Nope, I just wanted to help since I know sign language." We laughed. So back to getting dice. That's when Karen strikes. She starts yelling at the owner of the store, wanting to know why the owner was spending all his time helping this cute young lady but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who just wanted to get her grandchild a video game. This game store does not sell video games. Now let's paint a picture. Karen here is about 5 feet tall, standard Karen haircut, and maybe 240 in weight. And in her early 40s, if she has a grandchild that can play video games, then some poor choices may have been made in her past. The actual owner of the store said I help people that come to the counter and if they need help with something out on the store floor, I help them as best as I can. Then Karen points at me and says,
No, I'm talking about this owner.
The actual owner of the store and I look at each other and at the same time say, "Lady, I don't work here, and he's the owner and this place does not sell video games." We smile at each other. This is where Karen explodes on why does a game store not sell video games, and what is she going to do now. She waddles over to me and starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of, I should be nicer to older customers and they are the ones keeping my store open. At this point, I pull out my state employee badge and point at it and say real slow, "Lady, I do not work here," and that she can go to the gaming store next door to get what she wants. I then explained that, by state and federal law, by poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, she sputtered, then slapped me. When I started to talk again, she slapped me again. At this point, I got ticked off, stood to my full height and yelled at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time, that I would defend myself, and she would not like the results. At this point, the owner has called the police and has the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states that the officer is 2 minutes out. She screams and then tries to slap me again. I catch her by the wrist, spin her around and pin her hand to her back. I grab her other hand and hold both her hands behind her back and at arm's length, so that she couldn't kick me in the shins. This is when the police show up. Now, when you have a guy standing a foot plus taller holding a screaming woman at bay, cops are automatically going to think that you are in the wrong. The first officer is a lady and the second one is a guy. The first officer comes in first and sees this and says, "Sir, please let go of that woman." And I said I will as long as she won't hit me again. Karen starts going off on how I hit her and that she was just defending herself and that I need to be arrested. The second officer hearing this pulls his taser and says, "Man, you need to let her go now." I let her go and raise my hands to head level. Karen spins around, kicks me and then slaps me again. The owner of the shop says that's the third and fourth time she has assaulted that customer. The first officer then places Karen in cuffs and escorts her out to the car. The second officer is a short guy, about 5 foot 8 inches tall or so, still pointing the taser at me and wanting to cuff me. I explained that was not going to happen is my wrist is too big for his cuffs, and that he would need zip cuffs, and that he needed to call a sergeant if he was really actually going to try and arrest me. The second officer steps back and says, "Are you resisting arrest?" I said no, but I will be exercising my rights to a lawful investigation prior to arrest. Proven innocent till guilty. And that my stuff is I was in one defending myself from being assaulted by that screaming harridan your partner just took outside. Now, if you want me cuffed while you determine what's going on so you feel safe, I fully agree to that. I am just explaining that my wrist won't fit your metal cuffs. The first officer comes back in and says that Karen has been detained and is demanding a supervisor. The store owner pipes in with his side of the story, and the second officer is still pointing a taser at me, and explains that Karen assaulted me twice and was in the process of assaulting me a third time before I had restrained her. At this point, the second officer puts his taser away and then jokingly asks if he can see if the cuffs really won't fit. I hold out my right hand and he pulls out his cuffs and is like, "Whoa, they really won't fit." For everyone's information, the minimum inside perimeter of the bracelet is 7.9 inches, 20 centimeters when the ratchet is engaged at the first notch. The maximum perimeter is 6.5 inches, 16 centimeters, when the ratchet is engaged at the last notch. My wrist is around 10 inches. Both cops were amazed that the cuffs would not actually fit me, and that even if they did due to my size, they would not be able to cuff me behind the back. At this time, the sergeant shows up. He walks in, sees me, and says, "Hey Rusty, long time no see." And I reply, "Hey Sarge." Long story short, Karen was arrested for assault, and yes, I definitely pressed charges. From what I was told by Sarge, this was her 12th incident for similar issues, but the first time she got violent with someone. Yay, lucky me. Next story. Lady gets the seat behind me. My ex-wife and I were standing in line at the airport of our honeymoon destination, waiting to get checked in and return home. There was quite a bit of a line already, but we were lucky enough to find ourselves near the front of it. When there was only one couple in front of us, two fancy-looking ladies, think height and some pocket, marched in between the two lines to the front and smugly stood between the lines, being sure their important looks would get them served first. They tried to cut in front of the couple ahead of us, but the young couple was quicker and was able to pluck the older ladies from their bags with a surfboard and got checked in. The looks thrown left and right to everyone around from these ladies were dripping of contempt for the young couple and everyone else in line. The two praying mantises at this point start eyeballing me and my ex-wife, because we were now their competition for the 2-meter dash to the desk. They ever so slightly start shuffling forward to get a bit closer. At this point, the accumulated stress of traveling and my lack of patience with entitled people was getting the better of me. So I asked what they thought they were doing, and at the back of the line as well, at the back of the line. The head Karen, although perfectly capable of understanding and speaking English, resorts to saying a few demeaning-sounding things in her Slavic language, and proceeds to look me up and down like a piece of crap. Now, do not get me wrong, I'm a piece of crap, but that doesn't mean she gets to look at me with that much disgust. So instead of continuing the non-existent conversation in English, I switched to my dialect so she can have a taste of her own medicine. I calmly said a few choice sentences to her, carefully picking my words to make it sound as horrible as possible, fully realizing that only my ex-wife is capable of understanding me and that my dialect sounds like someone having a horrible stroke, which seemed to make secondary Karen realize it wasn't worth it, and she, kind of ashamed, started tugging on head Karen's sleeve to move to the back of the line. Some more things were said by her, some more dirty looks thrown, but they retreated to the end of the line and we got checked in. I'm sitting in the plane's middle row, aisle seat, and who walks in? The two Karens. We spot each other. Glares from her, grins from me, and it turns out head Karen's seat is the one behind me. From the moment we were off the ground, I reclined my seat all the way back, having dinner like an ancient Roman. If only they could have hanged my meal from the ceiling, so I could have picked it like grapes of wine. 4 hours into the flight or so, my back started to hurt, but I knew I wasn't going to let it stop me. I'll just stretch it out, unlike her legs, and sit out the remaining 2 hours of the flight. No looks were given by her when she left the plane, and as someone who never reclines their seat, I felt like a boss for having gone through with it all the way to the end. Pity but worth it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.